Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Iran nuclear program is the #1 national security threat we face. The State Department identifies Iran already as the #1 state sponsor of terrorism. A nuclear Iran means terrorism with impunity. It means eyeball-to-eyeball confrontations with a hostile nuclear state. And for those who find solace in the outcome of the Cuban Missile Crisis, you must ask, how many nuclear confrontations do you want to have with a government that is considerably less reasonable than the one that was presided over by Khrushchev? And if half a decade from now, 1 million Iranians are in the streets of Tehran to overthrow that regime, inshallah, and that government feels it is going to fall, these are not people who are going to walk off the world stage with a shrug of their shoulders, as Mr. Gorbachev did. If they're going out with a bang. They could smuggle a nuclear weapon or several into the cities of either the Great Satan or the Little Satan, or both, using their terminology. Now, some propose that we have sanctions that don't hurt the overall Iranian economy. Such smart sanctions are dumb. For as many have pointed out, this regime is not going to change its behavior unless it is faced with absolutely crippling sanctions. Those sanctions being discussed in international fora are a tiny fraction of what would be necessary to get this regime to change its behavior. For as Senator Lieberman points out, acquiring nuclear weapons is second only to regime survival in the objectives of this regime. That's why we need to pass this bill in the strongest possible form and then consider additional legislation to create an overall program of crippling extraterritorial sanctions. It's not enough to pass laws, they have to be enforced. The main part of this bill amends and adds to the Iran Sanctions Act, which has been on the books since 1996. As Chairman Berman points out, the enforcement of the existing law by the State Department, in my words, not his, make a mockery of the rule of law in the United States. As Chairman Berman pointed out, the Congressional Research Service has found 21 transactions which the law required the State Department to identify, name and shame, and then either waive sanctions or impose those sanctions. And the State Department has deliberately failed to do so. Reports by the State of Florida, State of California, and the GAO all identify even more such triggering transactions. The State Department's Economic Bureau has deliberately failed to identify those transactions. And if the bill we pass is going to be anything more than a mockery, we are going to not only have to require reports on the transactions, as Chairman Berman noted, but we're going to need congressional oversight and investigations and limits on appropriations. Now, the State Department has asked for additional flexibility. They have asked that we reward the fact that they have illegally ignored the law by writing provisions that will allow them to do it legally. The idea of country-by-country waivers is absurd. They will waive virtually every country unless they decide to simply ignore the law as an easier road to continuing what has been a consistent 13 or 14-year policy of ignoring the Iran Sanctions Act. Now, the bill contains language to deal with the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps. It has dozens of front agencies. We should require that they be identified and that we prevent companies from doing business with those agencies. The Senate bill puts this forward as just a sense of Congress. We are not an advisory body appointed by the Secretary of State. We're the Congress. And if we think something should be done, we should require the State Department to do it. The Iran Sanctions Act focuses on those who make investments in the Iran oil sector. It is important that we realize that Iran needs not only capital, but also technology, and we should oppose the same sanctions on those who sell goods and services to develop Iran's natural gas and oil fields. Two technical issues. One is that the Senate bill contains language designed to prevent U.S. companies from doing business with Iran through their foreign subsidiaries. We need to strengthen that language because under the current draft, if the company can show that the subsidiary has any other legitimate purpose, it can use that subsidiary to conduct business with Iran. Second, both bills allow state governments to decide that their own money, investment money funds, will not be invested in those companies that are aiding the government of Iran. The House bill grandfathers in existing state statutes, and I hope the ultimate bill will as well. I look forward to the strongest possible bill. We do not need to add additional waiver authority, and I yield.